For most of my life, I have been someone with absolutely no discipline. Back in high school, my notes were incomplete, assignments due, and I would only start studying just days before an exam. As I got older, this lack of discipline made me feel anxious and depressed, because I could see myself waste day after day and not make progress towards any of my goals. But around 6 years ago, things changed. I decided to go on a journey to build rock solid discipline. During this journey, I read dozens of self-help books, watched hundreds of podcasts on how the human mind works, and I tried nearly every self-improvement habit out there. And guess what? A lot of the things that I tried had little to no impact on my life. But some of the things that I learned worked so well that it completely transformed me. I now became someone who would wake up before the sun and do 4 hours of deep focused work. I started lifting weights and training martial arts 6 days a week. Additionally, I was able to become one of the top performing students in a very competitive engineering program. And I fulfilled my teenage dream of becoming a software engineer at Fortune 500 companies. In this video, I'm going to share with you the 10 most powerful habits and mental frameworks that helped me make this transformation possible. So let's get right into it. So what I'm about to tell you might seem like it goes against everything that you know. One of the biggest discipline hacks that I use on a daily basis is fasting. Fasting is when you do not eat food for a particular duration of time. The reason why fasting is such a discipline hack is because when I'm in this fasted state, there's nothing in my belly. I feel light, focused, and a lot more motivated. And this state of mind is just so great to get work done. Whereas whenever you have a big meal, blood rushes from your brain to your gut to digest that meal. This is why you hear people experience this energy crash right after having a big lunch. And when you're in this post-food coma kind of mental state, then it gets really hard to do productive things. So what I do now is that at least for the first 4 to 5 hours of the day, I try not to eat anything at all. And this is the window where I try to schedule most of my productive work. So I've been doing this kind of intermittent fasting for the last 4 years. And not only has it improved my focus, but my sleep has improved, my brain fog has cleared, and I just feel a lot more energetic throughout the day. You know, we hear this a lot that you should be sleeping 8 hours a day, and as long as you're sleeping 8 hours a day, your sleep is taken care of. This is where the discussion usually ends. But after researching quite a bit about sleep optimization, what I learned was that not all 8 hours of sleep is equal. If you're this person who goes to bed at random times, then the quality of your sleep is going to be incredibly poor, even if you sleep 8 hours. And when your sleep quality is poor, then it becomes 10 times harder to be disciplined. But when you go to bed at the same time every day and wake up at the same time every day, including the weekends, then your body secretes the right hormones at the right time and in the right quantities. And thus you wake up feeling a lot more refreshed, energetic, and ready to attack the day. So what I've done now is that I have decided the exact time at which I would be going to bed each day. And I've set an alarm just 30 minutes before my bedtime. And this alarm lets me know that, okay, time to unwind, time to get ready for sleep. So I make sure my room is cool, my bed is cozy, my phone is on flight mode, I have a water bottle next to my bed. Really spending some time and effort in optimizing your sleep is the single greatest zero-cost method to boost your discipline. In the past, what I used to do was I used to sleep with my cell phone right next to me, and as soon as my alarm would go off, I would check my notifications and then I would scroll through Reddit or Instagram for like 10-20 minutes. And I know that this seems like such a harmless thing to do, right? Just 10 minutes doesn't seem like much. But the truth is that these 10 minutes destroyed my entire day. When I started my day with giving myself this cheap instant pleasure, then it became incredibly hard for me to do productive things for the rest of the day. I would instead find myself wanting more hits of this instant pleasure. I learned that how you spend the first few minutes of your day determines the quality of your rest of the day. What I do now is that I like to start my day by doing something slightly challenging. And I know that once I do this thing, I am going to feel good about myself. So these days I start my day by doing 30 minutes of deep focus work. When I start my day by doing something challenging, it sort of sets the benchmark for the day, and the rest of the day feels like a breeze and I'm far more productive. But just make sure that the thing that you actually plan to do each morning is not something too challenging, otherwise you're going to want to procrastinate it. So negotiate with yourself and make it doable. Back when I was a teenager, I would watch these motivational videos or certain movies, and for the next few days I would ride this wave of motivation and would be really productive. But after a couple of days, I would find that my motivation is depleted and I would go back to my old habits. I must have lived this exact cycle like 1,000 times until it finally hit me that motivation is a limited resource and it cannot be used to build long-lasting habits. During the course of my journey, I came across this book called Atomic Habits. And the central principle of this book was to not rely on short-term motivation, but to rather rely on long-lasting systems. Systems are basically predetermined, structured ways of doing things. The most important system that I use in my life right now is a routine. What I realize is that when I note down the exact time at which I should be doing a specific activity, then I was much more likely to get that activity done. Because now I was mentally expecting that work to happen at that specific time. Secondly, routines provide you a map for your day. You now know exactly what to do and when to do it. When I was living a life without a routine, I used to feel lost on most days. Like every moment of my day became a question. Should I be eating now? Should I be working out now? And staying in this indecisive state of mind is actually very psychologically draining. But living life by a routine means that you can instead use this psychological energy towards starting the task instead. But just remember that designing a routine that you actually follow is an art. You can't just randomly put in 30 different activities in there and just expect yourself to follow it. If you would like to learn how to actually build a routine that you follow, then make sure you check out this video on my channel. So I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of pushback for saying this, but there are a lot of hidden negative costs associated with social gatherings. What used to happen to me was that my sleep schedule used to be on point, my diet used to be on point, I would be following my routine up until a social gathering showed up. When that would happen, I would almost certainly go to bed at a much later time, and I would end up eating fast food and cheating on my diet. But the real trouble would actually happen the next day when I would wake up sleep deprived and have brain fog because I ate shitty food, and then I wouldn't feel productive the entire day. This would really kill my momentum and made it really hard to start being productive once again. So what I do now is that I make sure I don't have social gatherings too frequently. I found that I feel fairly happy when I attend social gatherings once every 7 to 10 days. This way I get the joy from interacting with people I like, yet at the same time I can continue to be disciplined. In the past, I had this habit of doing everything with 100% intensity. And I would think that this is a good thing. I would actually tell myself like, oh, I'm such a perfectionist, I'm such a hard worker. But it is now that I realize that going too hard on intensity is what costed me consistency. For example, I would read 40 pages of a book on one day, but the next day reading 40 pages seemed like a mountain. So I would end up not reading at all. And guess what? Because of this all or nothing approach, I never read a single book cover to cover up until the age of 23. What I've done now is that I have started putting a lot more emphasis on consistency rather than intensity. One thing I do to maintain consistency is that I operate under my maximum tolerable limit. This means that instead of trying to read 40 pages of a book each day, I try to read 10 pages. Or instead of trying to kill myself each workout session, I try to put in 70 to 80% of effort. And you know what the really cool part about this approach is? Once you actually build up the consistency, the intensity comes in naturally. I've been reading and working out for over 4 years now, and these things have now become part of my identity. To me now, reading 40 pages of a book does not require that much effort anymore. But just remember that this intensity is earned through consistency. Hey there, if you're enjoying this video, then make sure you hit the like button. It lets the algorithm know that I am not completely incompetent. You know, I used to be a pretty skinny teenager, and I thought of this as my license to eat whatever I wanted to eat. Because back then I used to think that what fast food really does is just cause a person to become fat. And since I was pretty skinny, this did not really seem like a bad deal. But what I've learned after consuming processed food for 10 plus years is that not only does it impact the way that you look, but it absolutely ruins your mental health. I was depressed, high levels of anxiety, massive brain fog, and I felt like I had no motivation to do anything in life. And once I figured out that that, whoa, okay, these seemingly harmless packets of chips and soda are literally poison for your mind and body. That is when I started taking my diet extremely seriously. The first thing I did was I started eliminating anything that came in a packet or was made in a restaurant. Typically, these things that you see in packets have 10 to 12 unnatural ingredients in them. And when you ingest these things, your body and your mind become messed up. But there was just one problem. I was just too addicted to fast food and the cravings would always get to me. This cycle of relapsing to fast food went on for years until I broke my addiction using fasting. Fasting is what allowed me to rewire my brain and break that emotional connection that I had towards fast food to the point at which I stopped craving it entirely. After around 2 to 3 weeks of quitting all fast food and eating only single ingredient whole food, my mood became significantly better because I remember feeling happy for absolutely no reason whatsoever. The brain fog that I had disappeared, my attention span skyrocketed, and the best benefit was that my sleep quality went up drastically. I was now waking up fresh and motivated even without an alarm. During my journey, I came to realize that you need pleasure in your life. Now, this pleasure can come in two forms. It can either be instant pleasure. You know, the kind of pleasure that you have immediate access to. It is short-term pleasure and it does not really lead to your growth as a person. And if you're the kind of person that constantly chooses this sort of instant pleasure, then your ability to be disciplined or control your impulses degrades greatly. And you find yourself falling deeper and deeper into these quick pleasures. On the other hand, there is this source of pleasure called delayed gratification. This is the kind of pleasure that you actually need to work for. Things like working out, completing a project, working on an assignment. These things give you pleasure when you complete them. But they first require you to get up, do the work and feel uncomfortable for a while. The good thing about this sort of pleasure is that it actually builds you up. You are actually gaining skills by doing these things. And secondly, this sort of pleasure is long lasting. Like you could take a cold shower and go for a 5-kilometer run, and that high good feeling that you get is probably going to last for the next 5-6 hours. So what I try to do now is that I try to eliminate all forms of instant pleasure from my life and instead replace them with delayed gratification. I find that when I'm getting my source of pleasure from these healthy sources, I naturally do not crave these instant pleasures. It's like this scenario when you're already full up to your throat with healthy natural food, then all of a sudden the sight of a burger is not all that tempting. But if I was to do nothing all day and just sit and stare at walls, then I find it a lot harder to resist cheap instant pleasure. You know that saying that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? This is just as applicable to the type of content that you watch. In the past, the type of content that I would watch was just pure brain rot entertainment. Or I would just be rapidly binge scrolling through short form content. And I realized that I was turning into this person who found most things boring and would only find over the top, highly stimulating things as fun. I also felt a lot more sedated in life and felt that I had lost my desire to accomplish things. And not to mention, my attention span became quite terrible because of all the short form content that I've been watching. What I've done now is that firstly, I've drastically reduced my content consumption. And secondly, I've become very selective about the kind of content that I consume. It's now mainly long form content like podcasts, documentaries, or even like a few movies that are really worth watching and have some substance to them. I realized that as I made this switch, I became a very different person. I now felt that what I was watching was actually growing me and not just numbing me. The kind of thoughts that I was having were more about improving my life and becoming a better person. And once again, I started finding simple, productive things interesting again. In the past, one of the biggest problems I would face was that when it was time to work, I would feel tired and sleepy. And then during the night, when it was time for me to rest and recover, I couldn't fall asleep. I would just keep tossing and turning for hours and I would have like a billion different thoughts in my head. It turns out that your body has a biological clock of its own. This is called your circadian rhythm. Your circadian rhythm dictates whether you're supposed to be feeling energetic and motivated or you're supposed to be feeling tired and sleepy. And I quickly realized that my biological clock was showing the wrong time. This is why I felt the wrong way at the wrong times. After researching quite a bit about circadian rhythm, I found a few things that were really effective in fixing my circadian rhythm. One of the things that I do now is that I eat at the same time every single day. So my first meal is fixed at 12 in the afternoon and my next meal is fixed at 6 in the evening. Research has shown that irregular eating patterns can disrupt your circadian rhythm. The second thing I do is that I go to bed at the same time every single day, including the weekends. Lastly, I make sure that I have my dinner at least 90 minutes before I go to bed, so that when I do fall asleep, I am now actually receiving the benefits of sleep and my body is not just too busy trying to digest and break down food. Look, these 10 discipline hacks are very useful, but if you want to build long-lasting discipline, then you have to stop relying on willpower and rather build yourself an identity. So make sure that you watch this video to learn how to do just that.